And once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Trusted Smart Chain Overview. My name is Travis Flaherty. I'm excited to be your host here this evening. Now, what you can expect tonight is to learn a little bit more about the Trusted Smart Chain vision and also the opportunity to become a Trusted Smart Chain node operator. My goal here this evening, whether you choose to get involved as a node operator or not, is that you come away from this presentation number one, understanding just how big this movement is that's happening in the world of cryptocurrency, new world of finance, blockchain. There is definitely a shift that is happening in the world right now. And number two, that you come away more educated than you were in the past when it comes to cryptocurrency. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. First and foremost, I do need to start with a disclaimer. You should know that I am a co-founder of Prosper Link, LLC, and we hold the exclusive contract with the governing DAO for Trusted Smart Chain. DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So a DAO is a legal entity, no different than a sub-S corporation or an LLC, except that it's run by its members. It's more congruent with Web3, which is the next version of the internet, and more specifically, blockchain companies, because they are decentralized. Again, putting the people at the forefront. The information that's shared here tonight is for education and information purposes only. So we are sharing information about trust nodes, which are software licenses that support the operations of the Trusted Smart Chain blockchain. These are not investments, these are software. We don't make any guarantees of income, profits, or financial returns of any kind. And this communication does not constitute financial advice. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in and talk a little bit about why we built the Trusted Smart Chain. The idea was to bridge the gap between high valued assets and tokenization, more specifically, real world assets that are looking to raise capital. One of the challenges was there was a lack of clarity, there was a lack of framework, there was a lack of trust and transparency, and a lack of regulation in this space. And Trusted Smart Chain was built to address these issues. Now, I do want to just share some exciting news with you here this evening. So just a couple of weeks ago, we were recognized in Washington, D.C. by the IMA, which is the Internet Marketing Association for Blockchain of the Year. This event was attended by Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Secretary of Interior, Doug Burgum, Congressman, a number of congressmen and senators that were there as well. So we're very proud of the impact that we are currently making in the blockchain community. Now, let's talk a little bit about the topic at hand tonight, which is the tokenization of real world assets. You know, there have been these paradigm shifts, if you followed cryptocurrency over the last 16 years, that have led to entire new industries. And right now, the main focal point when it comes to cryptocurrency is tokenization of real world assets. What tokenization is doing is it's using blockchain technology to break down physical or digital assets into smaller tradable units, which now makes this ownership more accessible, more secure, and more transparent. You see, the average person is not in a position where they can go buy a luxury hotel. But now through tokenization, you can go buy digital tokens that are representations of ownership of that high valued asset. Think along the lines of the stock market. You go buy stock. You now have a certificate of stock, which gives you a right of ownership or a right of distribution. Well, except the difference here is it's happening on chain and you're buying digital tokens of that fractionalized high valued asset. Now, just to give you some perspective of just how big this is, you know, I've always said that if you can figure out where people are going and get there faster, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of money that can be made. If you go back just 4 years, there was approximately $2.6 billion worth of assets that were tokenized on chain. This year, $500 billion will be tokenized. And by the year 2030, conservative estimates suggest that we could see as much as $16 trillion of assets that are now tokenized brought onto the blockchain. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is why? Why are we seeing this rapid growth of businesses and high valued assets that are moving on chain? The answer to that question is it's much more efficient, it's less risky, and it's much more cost effective for a business to now utilize blockchain to some of the alternative methods to go and raise capital. For example, if I owned a business and I was looking to raise capital, I could go to private equity, but they're going to want me to give up something that I don't want to give up, which is control. I could go public, but the cost to capital now is extremely expensive to take a company public. It costs on average about $5 million to take a company public. It's a very lengthy process as well. Now, let's say that you do finally make it to the stock market. Well, congratulations, because your dollar turns into 80 cents overnight. Why? Because you're dealing with massive manipulation. You've got bots, you've got institutions like Hindenburg and BlackRock that you're up against that are shorting your stock. So this is a very risky proposition if you're a small cap company, especially in that range of $50 to $100 million that's looking to raise capital. So what these companies have figured out is by utilizing blockchain, not only is it much more cost effective, but it reduces those risks dramatically, and blockchain is fully transparent. So it reduces the risk of that manipulation. Now, this is a great thing for not only the businesses that are looking to raise capital, but for the retail investors as well. Why? Because everyone now has a seat at the table. You see, if I were a real world asset and I wanted to take my company public, I would typically do a private offering. That private offering is aimed at accredited investors, a very small percentage of the overall population. But now, through tokenization of real world assets, these real world assets can actually aim their capital raise not only at accredited investors, but when they're filing a Reg A, they can also aim it at non-accredited investors. So what does this do? It gives the average everyday person an opportunity to be able to have a better, more diversified portfolio. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the current challenges that we've faced in the world of cryptocurrency. So first and foremost, we've got to talk about the regulatory uncertainty. Over the course of the last 10 years, the government has failed to provide a framework, laws, regulation, clarity for these cryptocurrency companies to be able to operate. So that's left a lot of room for bad actors to come into this space. And just my personal opinion, but I believe that this was deliberate. And here's why. Because anything that threatens the actual banking system is a threat to the US government. Think about this for a moment. So, Blake, if you go withdraw $1,000 out of the bank and you go buy Bitcoin, who loses? The banks do, right? Because when we go and we deposit money into the banks, I think that we're all still kind of under this illusion that they take that money, they go put it on a shelf somewhere, and it just sits there until we want to go withdraw it. But the reality is we operate on something that's called the fractional banking reserve system. That means that the banks take your money, they go invest it, and they make fortunes, often at our expense. Now, why do I say that? Because while they're making a ton of money with your money, what's happening to the value of your dollar? Over the course of the last 5 years, guys, the dollar is down 25%. This year alone, it's down 10%. It's the worst performance of the US dollar in over 40 years. So think about this. In the United States, 20% of the US population now owns cryptocurrency. It's about 7%, 6, 7% worldwide. Guys, that's trillions of dollars that have left the traditional banking system and gone over to blockchain cryptocurrency. Do you guys realize in the last 6 years, more banks have closed than all of the previous years added up combined? That is a major threat. So the government, of course, has been getting a lot of pressure from the banks that are coming to them saying, hey, listen, we've got a problem here. So what did the government do? The government didn't provide clarity, didn't provide framework, and in fact, they actually declared war against cryptocurrency. So not only were the banks out there in the media telling you this was a decentralized Ponzi scheme, this is bigger, it's a bigger bubble than the dot-com bubble, don't touch it, stay away from it. They created all kinds of fear and uncertainty and doubt, but the government steps in and they started filing lawsuits against just about any prominent cryptocurrency company in the United States. They sued Binance, they sued XRP, they sued Coinbase, who previously had registered with the SEC and gotten approval to be able to operate here. Now, why did they do this? So here's what was happening. So we know, and this is just my opinion, that they needed to slow down the progress. The banks were starting to figure out that if you can't beat crypto, you got to join them. But they had to have time to be able to build the rails and the infrastructure so that they could monetize it. So the government steps in, they start filing lawsuits against all of these prominent companies. And the claim was that Bitcoin was not a security, but per the Howey test, Everything else was pretty much considered a security. Therefore, anybody that was now promoting these particular projects was selling an unregistered security. Here was the problem. They didn't give a pathway for these businesses to be able to go register with the Security Exchange Commission. So now you've got all these businesses that are being forced to operate in a gray area. And what does the SEC do? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. They started to rule by enforcement, and they could just make it up as they went along, and they could sue anybody and everybody that they wanted to. And that's exactly what they did. I have a personal experience of this. So I was involved with a company. I've been in the cryptocurrency space since 2016. I've operated nodes mostly since that time, started with Ethereum. I've always believed that mining or operating a node is a more sophisticated way to get involved with crypto. I say that because you're involved in the minting process of bringing those tokens into circulation. And so I was involved in a project that was one of the pioneers in tokenizing real world assets, commodities, things like oil, natural gas, and gold. And I was pretty excited about this project. I thought, you know what? This is it. This is the key because we're watching the industry right before our eyes go from hype and speculation to tangibility and substance, right? It's similar to the dollar back in 1972 and before when it was actually backed by the gold standard. And then Richard Nixon removed the gold standard. And what's happened to the value of the dollar since that time? So I got excited about this particular project. They started doing extremely well, started off as a node operator, eventually accepted a role as a consultant. I wasn't an owner in the company. My role was primarily to come in and develop the presentations and train the sales force, the affiliates around the world. And when the company got sued, I got named in the lawsuit as well for selling an unregistered security. It was a civil lawsuit. Now, if you've ever been sued by the US government, which I don't recommend, by the way, it's not a lot of fun. You typically have a few choices. One choice is you can go down the path of settlement, pay a big fine, or the other choice is you can choose to fight. I'm a big believer that if you are passionate about something and you believe in something, you have to be willing to stand up and fight for it. And so we ultimately chose to fight the SEC. And when you choose to do that, the government doesn't fight very fair. They come at you a number of different ways. They come at you financially, and they try to strangle you. Number two, they come at you in the public, and they try to attack your credibility. And they literally have press teams that are ready to go, and they make up all kinds of terrible things about you. And then the third thing they do is they try to drag you through court until you just can't keep up anymore. Well, we fought for the better part of a year, year and a half, spent millions of dollars, and the end result was the case was actually thrown out. Not only was it thrown out, the attorneys that brought the case forward against us were held in contempt. They were actually fined the SEC millions of dollars, and the regional office that brought the case forward against us was actually closed down. Now, why do I share this story with you? Because this was the beginning of a turning point. A few months after that, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, got grilled on Capitol Hill about his abuse of power. You see, what they wanted was the ambiguity, so they could rule by enforcement. It's kind of like driving on the Autobahn. There's no speed limit. You could go as fast as you want, but then they could randomly just pull you over for speeding. And that's really where the industry was only a few years ago. Well, eventually, Gary Gensler stepped down. The administration change came in, and then you have a new SEC, the head that comes in, and his name is David Sachs. And David Sachs immediately says the war against crypto is over. We are now inviting the people that were persecuted, prosecuted, and all of the innovation that was pushed outside of the United States back to the table. And we are now committed to making the United States the crypto capital of the world. Shortly after that, in March, on the front page of the SEC.gov, they started providing that clarity. They came out and said, proof of work mining is not considered a security. A couple of months later, they came out and said, proof of stake mining is not considered a security. Had we had this clarity years prior, those lawsuits would not have taken place. So since that time, crypto has been in the headlines this year no less than 15,000 times. Dozens of executive orders have been signed, including now allowing banks to be custodians over your cryptocurrency. Isn't that ironic? What does that mean? It means that you will now be able to soon log into your back office at your bank, and you'll be able to see your checking and your savings and your Bitcoin account and your Ethereum account all in one place. Guys, that didn't happen overnight. It took those banks time to build the rails, to be able to build the infrastructure. These same banks that only 3 years ago were telling you that it was a decentralized Ponzi scheme, to stay away from it. You know what they were doing? They were telling you not to buy crypto, but what do you think they were doing with your money? They were buying Bitcoin. They were preparing for this moment. And I'm here to tell you guys, crypto's not just coming, it's already arrived and it's being brought into just every facet of business and finance as we know it. So I'm a big believer that you either win or you learn. And sometimes you go through challenges in life to push you down a different path to exactly where you're supposed to be. So we took that experience and we said, what could we learn from this experience? And number two, how can we be part of the solution? And what we did is we came up with a universally accepted framework for tokenization. So what we're doing is we're providing a clear pathway forward now for these businesses to tokenize real world assets and to do it in a secure, here's the key word, regulated and trusted environment. Now, one of the first decisions that we made is we're only going to work with real existing businesses with cash flowing assets. We're not looking for speculative or unproven projects. What we're also doing is we're requiring every single one of these assets to actually register as an investment with the Security Exchange Commission. What does this do? It forces them to get an independent audit up front. What a novel idea. A company that's fractionalizing has to actually go get true value established before they start to do that. That hasn't existed up to this point. It also forces trust in transparent reporting on asset value, on ownership, and transaction history. Now, a lot of people ask me, Travis, there's a lot of blockchains that are out there. What you guys are doing, tokenizing real world assets, there's nothing new there. This has already been happening. What separates you from, say, a lot of these other companies that are out there that are actually bringing or blockchains that are out there that are tokenizing real world assets? And so I want to play just a quick 80-second video for you that helps you to really understand the differentiator here in the marketplace. People often ask me, how is Trusted Smart Chain different than any other blockchain that's out there? I was recently having a conversation with ChatGPT and I asked the question, how many blockchains are out there today? And it said over 1,000. And I said, okay, how many are true layer one blockchains? We're not talking about, an extension of Litecoin or some type of a white labeled blockchain. And it came back and said 130. And then I asked, well, out of those 130, how many are fully operable? That means that their node network is active, their validators are online, they have the ability to be able to host a smart contract. And it said 30. And I thought, man, we are one of 30 layer one blockchains, which is pretty exciting. Then I asked the question, how many of those focus exclusively on real world assets? And it said 10. And then I asked the most important question, how many of those blockchains require every real world asset to file a registration A, register as an investment with the Security Exchange Commission, have independent audits up front, and annually thereafter? And it said 1, Trusted Smart Chain. You want to know how we're different? We're raising the bar in this industry. So we are separating ourselves by creating a framework and establishing a regulatory pathway forward. My good friend Steve always says that cryptocurrency projects that go on to be extremely successful have to have a couple of things. One of the first things they have to have is a meaningful purpose in the marketplace. Well, guys, the government just gave $16 trillion in real world assets a green light to be able to tokenize, to be able to utilize blockchain to raise capital. And you know what they're looking for? They're looking for a blockchain that can provide a pathway forward that's going to keep them compliant and at the same time provide investor protection to the new smart money investors that are now coming into this industry. And that is exactly what we are doing here at Trusted Smart Chain. Now, let's talk a little bit about our vision for growth here for a moment. I want to be very clear. Number one, this is not a capital raise. We are not selling nodes to go build our blockchain. And that's what a lot of companies do. And a lot of times the money gets mismanaged. To be very clear, we self-funded. We have 0 investors. Our blockchain is live. Our nodes are active. Our node operators are earning Trusted Smart Chain token every single day. Our validators are live. Our blockchain explorer is live, which means that you can go and validate for yourself that everything that I'm sharing with you tonight is live and fully functional. And I'm very excited tonight to also announce that our trusted smart chain token is live and it is trading currently at $55 per token. And I could not be more excited about that. So this is not something that is coming. This is something that is already happening. We already have 12 real world assets that are currently in process of tokenizing on the trusted smart chain blockchain. These are businesses that come from real estate. We have medical grade hemp facilities. We have oil and gas companies. We have luxury hotels, just to name a few. The average value of the high valued assets, the real world assets that are coming onto our blockchain is $50 million. We've also introduced the trusted society. You see, when you get involved in crypto, especially if you're new, it's almost like learning a new language. There is a learning curve. And so we feel that it's very important that our node operators get the appropriate education that they need to be successful in this space and to also help us govern the trusted smart chain. Again, no one owns the trusted smart chain. It is governed by its members and governed and enforced by an actual DAO, a charter that essentially governs the entire blockchain, and the members are the ones that run it by vote. So let's talk a little bit about our vision for growth. So we had the launch of our blockchain in March, and that is when the node distribution, the token distribution started for our node operators. Just in the last week, our token went live on the T7X digital trading platform. You'll see additional exchanges, DEXs that Trusted Smart Chain will be coming on here in the very near future. The listing committee here at the Trusted Smart Chain DAO is currently working on that right now. We also kicked off a belief building initiative that was very important. There's a lack of transparency and a lack of trust in the cryptocurrency space. And a lot of times you don't even know who's behind these projects. And so we said, we're going to change that. And what we do is every 90 days, we have an event. And these events are typically held at our beautiful offices in Irvine, California. We're right now in the process of opening offices on the East Coast as well. And sometimes we actually hold the events at the actual real world asset sites. And what we do is not only do we educate and inform our community, but we bring and invite the real world asset managers themselves to come and talk about why they're tokenizing and why they chose Trusted Smart Chain. And what that does is not only reinforce that trust, that belief, but it takes our community and turns them not only just into believers, but it turns them into believers with conviction. And as they get more excited, what do? They go out and they share the Trusted Smart Chain with others. And every time that somebody else comes on board as a node operator, that just continues to reinforce decentralization, continues to establish trust, and allows us to be able to continue to bring on more real world assets. We also introduced our own decentralized wallet that allows our node operators to be able to safely and effectively manage their digital token rewards. Now, one of the things that separates us from everybody else is that we actually formed a grant. And the way that it works is we take 25% of the node sales. When we sell out of the nodes, and keep in mind, there's only 200,000 nodes that we are selling. When they're gone, they're gone. 25,000 or so approximately are already activated. So when we sell out on the nodes, that'll amount to hundreds of millions of dollars that we will have put into a grant. Well, that grant goes to support technology companies, crypto enthusiasts that are bringing projects to the table that are focused around tokenizing real world assets. And here's what's cool. The community, per their vote, gets to decide who gets approved as a grant recipient. So one of those grant recipients happens to be T7X. T7X is a licensed digital asset platform, very similar to an exchange. These are places that you would go to create an account to be able to buy, sell, trade cryptocurrency, no different than crypto.com, Kraken, Coinbase, and many of the other exchanges that are out there. The main difference is T7X is only listing registered investments that have filed a Reg A on their platform. Now, why would they do that? This is a platform that's compliant in 7 continents around the world. The reason why they're doing that is because they're catering to the new demographic of people that are coming into the industry. You see, if you look back over the last 10 to 15 years, you had a specific demographic. We referred to them as the crypto bros. These were people that were typically in their 20s and 30s. They were risk takers. They were buying tokens that were highly speculative. They were hoping to get lucky. Now, you have smart money investors that are coming in. If you guys look around the group here tonight, if you were to look at if any of the node operators would drop an eye into the comment section, if you operate a node on the Trusted Smart Chain, you will find that there's a different demographic here. And these individuals that are now coming into cryptocurrency, not just here at Trusted Smart Chain, but around the world, want something different. They don't want to go and gamble with speculative coins. You know what they want? They want tokens that are digital representations of high valued assets. And they want them to actually be registered investments. Why? Because it forces accountability. It forces that real world asset follow the Security Exchange Commission's rules and guidelines. And the third thing that they want is distributions. If I'm going to invest money in a company that's raising capital, then I want a dividend. I want to get paid on my money. And what T7X is doing is catering to that new demographic that's coming into cryptocurrency, because every real world asset that they bring onto their platform registers as an investment, and they're paying on average a 10% distribution. Now, why would we donate millions of dollars to T7X as a grant recipient? The reason why is because they've chosen the Trusted Smart Chain as their infrastructure. Remember, every single cryptocurrency coin has to live on a blockchain. So as they bring these real world assets and list them on their trading platform, they're utilizing the Trusted Smart Chain as the infrastructure. Not only that, but they've actually chosen the Trusted Smart Chain token as their preferred token of choice. This is what we call utility. So some of you have probably heard of an exchange called Binance, one of the largest exchanges in the entire world. Well, if you want to participate in the Binance ecosystem, including the hundreds, potentially even thousands of projects that are built on the Binance blockchain, you have to have their native token to gain access. It's called BNB. BNB just became the third largest market cap in the world, hit a new all-time high a couple of weeks ago of approximately $1,250 per token. Why did that happen? Because it has real world case use. It has utility. And here's what's exciting. The T7X digital platform, if you want to participate, you have to have the Trusted Smart Chain token in your wallet. That is the same token that our node operators are earning every single day for their support of this blockchain. So let's break it all down. Let's talk about how it all works. So you have T7X, a licensed digital trading platform, no different than Coinbase. People go to these type of platforms to buy and sell cryptocurrency. T7X is listing tokens, companies that are launching their own tokens to raise capital. Now, these happen to be registered investments. These investments are paying on average a 10% distribution to their investors. I want to be very, very clear. We do not get involved in that process. We are not soliciting on behalf of any of these projects. All we are is the infrastructure. You see down below, it says powered by Trusted Smart Chain. Well, what is the Trusted Smart Chain blockchain? What is a blockchain? A blockchain is nothing more than a network of computer nodes. In the old days, when the Bitcoin blockchain came out, it was actually hardware. They called it mining. It was a big, expensive equipment, required a lot of electricity. It was loud, it was noisy, it was expensive. You can still go buy a Bitcoin miner today for about $9,000, $10,000, and you can connect to the Bitcoin network. So a network, a blockchain is nothing more than a network of nodes. The newer blockchains now use computer nodes because they're more efficient. I want you to think of nodes as the blockchain's version of cell towers. They work together to validate transactions and to maintain the network, providing a secure and a resilient system. So think about it this way. In a centralized system, you have the banks. The banks are there validating transactions, making sure that transactions go through. They're creating a ledger of all of those transactions. In a decentralized system, we've removed the banks. We've put the power back into the people's hands. You know, there's a saying that I'm fond of, gold is God's money. Fiat currency is the government's money. Cryptocurrency is the people's money. What I love about decentralization is it gives the average everyday person the ability to now be a node operator. By buying a node, you are supporting the Trusted Smart Chain blockchain, and you are earning Trusted Smart Chain token every single day for the next 120 years. If you're a node operator here at Trusted Smart Chain, from the moment that you activated your node, Have you received your daily deposit of Trusted Smart Chain token every single day? Yes or no? Put it into the chat for me if you would. So, we've talked a little bit about our pathway to utility, or excuse me, our meaningful purpose in the marketplace. We are bridging that gap between high valued assets and tokenization at the perfect time. Now let's talk a little bit more about utility. Utility, another word for utility is case use or demand. There's a saying that I often use, which is when you have hype that leads and utility that lags, you typically will see a short-term growth followed by a crash. Fast cash equals fast crash. You see, there's two ways to create demand for a cryptocurrency token project. Now, one way is through hype. I can go hire a celebrity, I can go hire an influencer, I can go, get an MLM and get a bunch of people to go out and create a bunch of hype and talk about, how this token is going to go to the moon. And you know what's going to happen? People are going to start buying it. The token value is going to start going up. FOMO is going to kick in, fear of missing out. More people start buying it, then the token goes up even more. And then the people that own the large majority of the token, they end up selling when it's at its peak. And what happens to the price? It crashes. And most of the people bought on the way up. On the other hand, you can have real world utility. Again, very good example would be BNB. That's real world case use. So I want to talk a little bit about the utility here at Trusted Smart Chain. So first of all, the real world assets that are coming onto that T7X digital trading platform, the companies, the high valued assets that are looking to raise capital, remember, they're paying on average a 10% distribution. Now, who are they paying that to? They're paying it to the investors that come and invest directly with them. Remember, we don't get involved in that process. They go get a valuation, file a Reg A with the Security Exchange Commission. When they get approved, they have 12 months to do a capital raise. Now, they'll partner with a media company. They'll go out and solicit funds from both accredited and non-accredited investors. But here's the thing, the real world asset managers, they have to take their fiat currency, they have to go to an exchange, and they have to buy Trusted Smart Chain token, and then they have to pay their investors utilizing the Trusted Smart Chain token. Well, let me ask you a question. Who are they buying that token from? They're buying it from you, the node operator. And guess what? You get to decide when you want to sell. There's no lockup period. You are in full control. Just the same way as if you were supporting the Bitcoin blockchain back in 2009. Could you imagine knowing what you know today about Bitcoin sitting at 113,000? If you could go all the way back to 2009 and you had a chance to be able to support the blockchain and earn Bitcoin every day, would you have done it? Yes or no? I don't think there's anybody on here that would say, no, I wouldn't have done that when Bitcoin was worth less than a penny. But here's the thing. The people that were supporting that blockchain, they got to decide when they wanted to sell. They could have sold when it was worth $1, $5, $500, $5,000, 50,000, 100,000. They could have sold yesterday for 110,000, or a few weeks ago when it hit a new all-time high at 125K. So let me ask you a very important question here. Why is Bitcoin sitting at $113,000 today? Utility. It's just demand. It's not magic, it's just math. So what we have created is real world utility. In addition to that, we require the real world assets to go set aside 2.5 to 10% of their capital raise. And they have to go buy Trusted Smart Chain with it, and they have to stake it for 5 years. They're not allowed to touch it. Why? Because we want to make sure that they have a deposit there so that the distributions that they're paying their investors, they have the money to be able to do that. But here's the thing. What's that doing to the circulating supply? It's reducing the circulating supply. So now you have a growing demand and you have a circulating supply. What's usually the result there? What happens when a lot of people are moving into your city and there's not that many homes on the market? What typically happens to the value of the homes? We've already talked about the gas fees on the T7X digital trading platform. Those are transaction fees, by the way. You have to have Trusted Smart Chain token in your wallet to participate in the T7X ecosystem. Native pairing for asset swaps. Every one of those tokens that they launch over there is paired to the Trusted Smart Chain token as a trading pair. Guys, what we have created is utility, and this is what most projects are lacking. Guys, Bitcoin didn't even have utility when it first came out. It had no real world case use. How much forced buying of Bitcoin was there when it first came out? Zero. How much forced buying is there of Bitcoin today? Still zero. You know why people buy it? Because they see utility. Bitcoin used to be a speculative token. People used to buy it just hoping to get lucky. Now, today, people buy it not just to get lucky, they buy it because it's actual currency that's validated at the highest levels by the US government because they brought it into their strategic reserve and they're integrating it into every facet of business. So let's talk a little bit about the supply because supply also matters. So Bitcoin did something that was really brilliant. They came out and said in their light papers, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. That's it. When they're gone, they're gone. It's unlike the dollar that they just keep printing and printing and printing. And what does that do to the value of your dollar? So there's only 21 million. 95% of them have already been minted. So what did that do? Well, that fixed supply design created a unique place of stored value and an appreciating asset in Bitcoin's case. They also said we're going to have a halving event every 4 years, which means they released 50% of the total circulating supply. 10.5 million token went out in the first 4 years. And then they had a halving event. Said, okay, we're going to cut it in half now. 4 years later, we're going to cut it in half again. 4 years later, we're going to cut it in half again. And they keep doing that. So what's now happening? You've got a growing demand and a diminishing supply. And you end up with 115 plus $113,000 token today. So Trusted Smart Chain, we analyzed a lot of different projects and said, we're going to do the same thing as Bitcoin. We're going to only mint 21 million Trusted Smart Chain tokens. 10.5 million are going to go out in the first 4 years. To who? To the node operators that are active. Now, there's only 200,000. As if you go join the Bitcoin network today, you're competing against millions of people. And you can go buy a Bitcoin miner. Like I said, you can go buy one for $9,000, $10,000, have it shipped to your house, activate it, and you can start earning Bitcoin every single day. Here's the problem. You can't go back to 2009 to 2013 when their distribution was at its highest. And you're competing against millions of people. Right now, we have 25,000 active node operators online. So does it benefit someone to be early? Absolutely. There's less people to divide those rewards up amongst. And you're at the peak of distribution. You know what I call that? An accumulation phase. The people that were there in Bitcoin in the early stages, they accumulated a lot of Bitcoin. And guess what? It may not have been worth a ton in the beginning, but here's what you have to understand. Today's price is not indicative of tomorrow's value. First year distribution, second, third, and fourth, the first 4 years, 2.6 million tokens go out to our node operators. That's 7,191 token per day that are going out to the active node operators. So let's talk a little bit about becoming a node owner. So your nodes, what are they doing? They're validating transactions on the blockchain. They're maintaining security. They're adding blocks to the blockchain. Remember, it's a ledger. They're supporting smart contract execution for all of these real world asset projects. They are storing and ensuring the integrity of the blockchain data. So what is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to make sure that the node stays active. You have to make sure that it stays hosted. Now, you can host it on your own server, or we have referral partners that will host it in a data center for $1.95 per node. And as long as you keep your node active, you receive your daily digital rewards. Now, we also, in addition to keeping your nodes active, we always say that it's not just about the node, it's about the participation. Because remember, it is the community that is governing the blockchain. And so we have node updates once a month for our node operators. We have votes that are happening. There's a current vote that's open and active right now for our community members. And for your support and your participation in the community, you receive Trusted Smart Chain token every single day. You also get an annual membership in the Trusted Society. And this gives you access to all of our social communities. This gives you access to the events where we often invite our real world asset managers to educate our community. This gives you access to our affiliate program if that's something that you want to participate in. And one of the most esteemed blockchain communities in the world. All right, so we've got a couple of different options and ways that you can get started. When you first buy a node, you become what's called a founder in the Trusted Society. One node is currently priced at $3,100. And I say currently because every 1,000 nodes that sell, the price goes up $100. And that will continue all the way up to $10,000. So it's all about supply and demand. Every day, the supply is getting less and less. And as a result of that, the value continues to go up with every 1,000 nodes that are sold. When you buy a node, of course, you now are a member in the trusted society, and that includes your software purchase and activation. You start earning your daily digital rewards. You become a stakeholder in the DAO with voting rights. You get access to all of our social communities and all of our events. Now, the next option, and a very popular option to get started, is the Prestige level. Prestige gets you 5 nodes, currently priced at $15,500. And the reason why somebody would want to buy 5 versus 1 is now they're getting 5 times the distribution. So in a hypothetical example, let's say the nodes were distributing 0.20 token per day, which is approximately where we are currently right now. And that will change as more node operators come online. But if you had 5 nodes, then that would put you at 1 token, 1 trusted smart chain token every single day under that hypothetical example. Now, we do have a great promo running right now. If you buy 5, you actually gain access to a 6th node at $500. The reason why that's so significant is because it drives your dollar cost average down to approximately $2,600 per node, which is a fantastic opportunity to be able to start accumulating trusted smart chain token. We also have the legacy level, which is 20 nodes, currently priced at $62,000. That would allow you to be able to unlock 4 additional nodes at $500 each. And again, with those 20 nodes, and you have the additional 4 option, you would have 24 nodes, 24 distributions of those daily digital rewards. The next we have is our luminary level. This kicks off our elite levels. The elites gain additional access to special events, dinners, breakfasts, they have more overall access. And of course, they're earning a lot more digital rewards as well. So the luminary level at 50 nodes would allow you to unlock 10 additional nodes at $500 each. And again, you're now with that option getting 60 daily distributions of the trusted smart chain token. And finally, we have our Titans. Our Titans are the top of the food chain when it comes to the executive levels. They get all access to the founders at our events. For example, the last annual node owners event that we held in Tulum at one of our hotels, luxury hotels that happens to be tokenizing on the trusted smart chain. We took all of the Titans out on a beautiful 65-foot catamaran, and the conversations that were happening on the sandbar that day were absolutely priceless. So Titans also would gain access to 10 additional nodes at $500 each. And finally, we have on top of that, we do have an icon level. Icons are, number one, they have to be voted in by the Senate. An icon is 1,000 nodes, and this is a very significant role in the company because of the amount of token rewards that an icon would be earning on a daily basis. We do not allow anyone to earn or own more than 1,000 nodes currently within the community. And the reason for that is because we want to keep things decentralized. And obviously, when somebody has this many nodes, they're earning a lot of rewards. So they have to be voted in unanimously by the Senate, and they also will serve on the TSC Blockchain Senate as well and participate in the Government Relations Board of Trusted Society. And I'd like to close with just this thought. So I have lived in the same area now for the better part of about 20 years. And the area that my wife and I first moved to here in Arizona was a smaller community, and a lot of it was farmland. And over the years, I've watched those farmers sell that land off to the developers. The developers came in and they brought the roads and the sewers and the infrastructure, and they made a lot of money doing that. Next, you had the builders that came in and they started buying up those plots of land and they started building homes. And of course, they made a lot of money as well. And then finally, you had the commercial developers that came in and said, okay, now they need grocery stores and gas stations. And so they started building their commercial developments and also made a lot of money. And I watched this happening, and it really taught me a very important lesson in business. And that lesson is this: smart money invests in the roads before the rush. In this case, the rush is the $16 trillion that is now coming towards the tokenization of blockchain, and that was just given a green light by the government. The road, of course, is trusted smart chain. We are providing a pathway forward a regulatory pathway forward for these businesses, for these real world assets to be able to tokenize in a regulatory and compliant manner. And of course, what makes up those roads is our node operators. And those node operators are earning trusted smart chain token every single day for their participation and support of the trusted smart chain. Ladies and gentlemen, I missed Bitcoin back when it first came out in 2010. I had a friend that shared it with me, and I told him that I thought that it was a scam. I didn't understand it. But I will tell you this is my Bitcoin moment. I couldn't be more excited to be a node operator. And I